The woman glanced around, making sure no one was watching, then quickly snatched a handful of chocolates and slipped them into her backpack. But little did she know, a wealthy man had seen everything. Just then, she noticed his gaze, but instead of exposing her, the rich man simply smiled at her. She smiled back and casually walked away while he was distracted. Moments later, she found herself mesmerized by a $5,000 designer dress. She couldn't afford it, but couldn't resist holding it in front of the mirror, daydreaming about how elegant she'd look in it. Suddenly, a man's voice spoke up behind her.
It suits you.
Well, I can't afford it.
Let me buy it for you.
The dress is for sale. I'm not.
Neither of them knew that this encounter would soon change their lives forever. Diana and David had been high school sweethearts. David proposed when Diana was just 19, and despite their family's objections, they walked straight into marriage with full hearts. After the wedding, David got a job at a construction company, while Diana worked in real estate. Life was sweet, and they looked forward to a bright future together. Although they sometimes argued over trivial things, their love always brought them back together. They dreamed of building their own house and took out a loan to buy a piece of land. David personally designed every detail of their future home. To repay the loan, they tightened every corner of their budget. But just when the house was halfway done, an economic crisis hit. Diana hadn't sold a single house in 6 months, and the construction industry had hit rock bottom. Then came the worst news. David was laid off. With no income, they couldn't keep up with the loan, and the bank repossessed their house. Life spiraled into hardship.
David, I'm scared. What are we gonna do?
I'll wait tables or drive a cab or something. I don't...
Make it go away.
Swallowing his pride, David asked his father for $5,000, but it was far from enough to settle their debts. At night, they lay in bed restless and worried about their future. In the middle of the night, David suddenly woke Diana and told her to get ready. He was taking her somewhere. He had decided to try his luck at the casino. To his surprise, things started off well, and he quickly won a decent amount. Tempted by success, he kept raising the stakes, hoping for more. Meanwhile, bored Diana wandered into a high-end boutique. She casually tasted a piece of chocolate, then, when no one was looking, grabbed a handful and slipped it into her backpack. So that's how the scene from the beginning happened. When she returned to David, he had already won $9,000. He asked her to kiss the dice for luck, and sure enough, he won again. Their loud celebration caught the attention of John. As David and Diana kissed in excitement, Diana noticed John watching them from a distance. Their eyes met briefly. On the first day, their luck was incredible. They won a total of $25,000. They agreed that once they reached $50,000, they'd call it quits.
I love you.
I know that.
No, I mean, even without the money.
But the next day, fortune didn't smile on them anymore. Their chips kept dwindling. They had agreed to stop if they dropped below $5,000, but now they only had $4,000 left. David's face was full of frustration. Diana picked up a coin and proposed a coin toss. Heads, they keep going. Tails, they stop. David flipped the coin.
2 out of 3.
They took their final chips to the table, betting everything in one last desperate move. As the roulette ball spun wildly, Diana hesitated, wanting to pull the chips back.
Too late, young lady.
But it was too late. They lost every last cent. Defeated, they were ready to leave, but something about a crowded table nearby caught their attention.
Hey, that's John Gage. $10,000 apiece. Every time he lays one down, 10,000 big ones. Look at him, how cool he is.
Just as they turned to go, John called out to them.
Would you mind lending me your wife?
Excuse me?
For luck.
I don't think it's a good idea. I think we should just go.
Just for a moment?
I'll go.
Go ahead. It might be fun. What do we got to lose?
May I?
Eventually, Diana agreed to sit beside him. John admitted he hadn't won a single game that day and hoped she'd bring him luck. Diana began placing bets under his instruction. They flipped their cards and lost the first round. Feeling unlucky, Diana tried to leave. But John stopped her, casually scribbled a check, and traded it for $1 million worth of chips. This time, they played dice. The sight of such a large bet excited the crowd, and Diana looked nervously at John. He told her to bet it all. She followed his instruction, placing everything on the line. The casino manager began to sweat. If she rolled a 7 or a 10, they would win.
Aren't you forgetting something?
Diana gave John a puzzled look, then kissed the dice and threw them. This time they won.
Think I ought to quit now?
I think I should.
Overjoyed, Diana ran into David's arms. John came over to introduce himself. The couple, originally planning to leave, were persuaded to join him for a celebration dinner as a gesture of thanks. They were taken to the luxurious suite John had reserved for them, stunned by the lavish surroundings. Soon after, John's assistant delivered a surprise gift. David opened it. It was the exact black dress Diana had been admiring. That evening, they attended the party hosted by John, where the guests were all members of high society. As the live band played, David and Diana twirled on the dance floor, lost in their own world. Meanwhile, from a distance, John watched them silently, his expression unreadable, as if he was calculating his next move. During their conversation, John asked David what kind of person he thought he would be in 10 years.
Well, I wouldn't mind being a billionaire like yourself.
I mean, beyond money.
What, are you saying you're not satisfied?
Who is?
Although John was now a billionaire, to the outside world he was just a wealthy, charming playboy, but deep down, his emotional world had always felt empty. That is, until he met Diana, the woman who stirred feelings in him he hadn't felt in years. David replied that some things in life simply couldn't be bought with money. Diana added that love was one of them.
I were to offer you $1 million for one night with your wife.
I'd assume you're kidding.
But John, with a serious expression, insisted he wasn't joking. He repeated his offer, $1 million for just one night. That money, he said, could set them up for life. Seeing the hesitation on their faces, John told them not to answer right away. They could take their time to think it over. Although Diana and David initially turned him down, they couldn't sleep that night. The offer echoed in their minds, a sum that could solve all their problems and change their lives forever. Diana could tell David secretly hoped she would accept, even though he said otherwise. His hesitation and body language had already betrayed his thoughts. In the end, Diana said she was willing to do it, for David. They made a promise. After that night, no one would ever speak of it again, as if it had never happened. So they brought in their lawyer friend to formally sign a contract with John, which included two very crucial terms. First, even if no physical relationship occurred, John would still be required to pay. Second, if John died during the process, the payment would still have to be made. Without hesitation, John signed.
$1 million will be deposited in your casino account in the morning.
John's assistant reminded David that it was time to leave. Reluctantly, David handed his wife over to John, and the room was left with only John and Diana.
I don't bite.
What should I go and dress?
David was overwhelmed with turmoil, and no matter how much his friend tried to reason with him, he couldn't hear a word. In the end, he made up his mind. He couldn't let Diana go through with it. Like a madman, he raced back to the hotel, desperate to stop her. But when he burst into the suite, it was already empty. A hotel staff member told him they had taken a helicopter. David bolted to the rooftop, but it was too late. The helicopter was already in the air, and no matter how he shouted, he could only watch helplessly as it flew away. John had taken Diana to his private yacht out at sea. Diana changed into a cheongsam John had picked out for her, and the two sat at the back of the boat, gazing up at the stars.
Who made the decision?
We both did.
Do it for your own reasons or don't do it.
John guessed that David hadn't stopped Diana, and said that if Diana were his woman, he would never have allowed her to go through with it. He confessed that from the moment he first saw Diana, he was drawn to her. He hoped she truly wanted to be there with him, not just because of the deal. Then he gently held her hand. John proposed flipping a coin to decide whether the night would go on. Heads, they'd continue. Tails, it would end. He flipped the coin. It landed on heads. Meanwhile, David sat restlessly in the hotel, pulling at the curtains all night. Time passed, painfully, slowly. At last, Diana returned safely. Neither of them said a word about what had happened. With tears in their eyes, they walked toward each other. David gently wiped the tears from her face, then erased the red lipstick she had put on for John. With a kiss, they tried to cleanse themselves of everything that had happened. They rushed to the bank, eager to reclaim their home, but they had missed the final payment deadline. 2 days earlier, the land had been sold. David was furious, but there was nothing he could do. Just when they thought life would return to normal, a simple matchbox shattered the peace. It was something Diana had brought back from John's yacht. David couldn't let it go. He demanded to know what really happened that night. Diana didn't want to relive it, but the more she avoided the topic, the more curious David became. He secretly searched her purse and found John's business card tucked inside. Burning with rage, he stormed toward her, just in time to hear her talking on the phone. He assumed she was still in contact with John, but Diana explained she had only been talking to her mother. David pulled out the card, demanding answers. Diana, however, had no idea when it had even been placed there.
What are you doing going through my wallet anyway?
I don't trust you.
Well, you know what? I don't trust you either.
Well, then we're even.
Their relationship quickly fell into a cold silence. Wanting to fix what was broken, Diana decided to buy back the land that once belonged to them. She contacted a friend at the bank for help, only to discover that the person who bought the land was John. Furious, she went to confront him and flipped over the table in front of him.
You stole our property.
Gentlemen, I'd like to introduce a friend of mine.
I'm not your friend.
John was humiliated in front of his friends, but surprisingly, he wasn't angry. Instead, it made him admire Diana's bluntness and honesty even more. Diana offered to buy the land back for $1 million, but John had another offer. He wanted Diana to come work for him. Diana wanted nothing more to do with this man. When Diana returned home, she found David sitting coldly in the living room. She tried to speak to him calmly, but the moment she mentioned meeting with John, David exploded, shattering a bottle of red wine in fury. Diana was deeply hurt by his lack of trust. David demanded to know exactly what had happened between her and John.
David, he bought our property, okay? That's why I went to see him. I just wanted to find some way to get it back.
Then David started asking again about that night on the yacht, even though she repeated that all she did was sleep with him and that there were no feelings involved. But David still felt inferior in the shadow of a billionaire.
You were attracted to him all along, you know.
That's bullshit. David, I did it for you.
Don't you tell me you did it for me. You did it for yourself.
That's a lie.
You were dying to do it.
It's a lie. I would never do this for myself. It was all for you.
Oh, don't lie to me. You were attracted to him.
In the end, he stormed out of the house, slamming the door, leaving Diana standing there in tears. She was filled with regret over the choice she had made. David moved in with a friend and didn't come home for days. Diana called him and said she didn't want the money. David replied that he didn't want it either. After their separation, Diana sank into a deep sadness. One day, her boss burst into the office and told her that a client wanted to view a luxury mansion worth tens of millions and had specifically requested her. When Diana saw who it was, she froze. It was John. She instinctively wanted to decline, but her boss smirked and said, "If you don't take the client, don't bother coming back." Reluctantly, Diana agreed. She showed John around the mansion, patiently introducing each feature. But John's attention was clearly not on the house.
Why didn't you return any of my calls?
They continued touring other properties until they arrived at a particularly grand estate. John showed immediate interest. Diana told him the house was worth at least $30 million, and it wasn't for sale. But for someone like John, nothing was truly off limits. When they walked inside, Diana realized in shock, it was John's own house.
What do you think it needs?
I think it needs a life. I think it needs furniture and maybe a couple of dogs and flowers.
It needs you.
John's words left Diana stunned, but she knew there could never be a future between them. His heartfelt confession left Diana even more confused. She couldn't understand what he really wanted. David had moved out of their old home and rented a small, shabby apartment alone. But everything in that room constantly reminded him of Diana. Diana, trying to stay busy, threw herself into work during the day and taught classes at night. But to her surprise, John showed up at her class, pretending to be a student. Diana tried to kick him out, but he showered her with compliments in front of the entire class and stayed until she finished teaching. As time passed, their relationship began to soften. Later, he brought her back to that mansion. The moment they walked in, 2 adorable dogs ran up to greet them. Then John played some music and started opening up about his past. 30 years ago, on a train headed home, he met a girl who made his heart race, but he was too shy to speak to her. For 2 weeks, he took the same train at the same time, hoping to see her again, but she never showed up. That missed connection became a lifelong regret, until he met Diana, who awakened the part of his heart that had been silent for years. This time, he didn't want to let her slip away again. Slowly, Diana's broken heart began to heal. She started to open up to John, and the two grew closer. Meanwhile, David's life was falling apart without Diana. He knew there was no going back, but deep down, he still loved her. On a stormy night, David showed up in front of Diana, completely drunk, hoping to win back her heart. But Diana's heart had already been broken too deeply by him. David mocked John, calling him a cuckoo bird who didn't build his own nest but stole someone else's. He lunged at John, ready to throw a punch, but ended up collapsing on the floor. John asked Diana to go into the hotel first, then helped David into the car with Shackelford and told Shackelford to drive him home. The next day, David finally sobered up. He looked at the model house he'd built by hand, and memories of the dreams and promises he once shared with Diana came flooding back. He knew he couldn't keep drowning in sorrow. It was time to pull himself together. He nailed an interview at a small design firm, and with talent and perseverance, quickly began to make a name for himself in the industry. That day, his friend came to see him, and was truly glad to see he was slowly getting back on track. But immediately after, he also brought some bad news.
She wants a divorce. If you don't contest it, you get everything. The land, the money, everything.
Where is she?
That day, Diana accompanied John to a fundraiser for endangered animals, and among them was her favorite, the hippopotamus. The host unveiled a pair of hippo photos for bidding. John made the first move, confidently offering $30,000. Wearing a proud smile, he raised the bid to $50,000, full of swagger and charm. Just as he thought victory was his, a familiar voice rang out from the crowd. Both Diana and John turned in shock. It was David. The man who once lost his love over $1 million was now using $1 million to try and win her back. John stepped aside, giving them space to talk. At that moment, heavy rain poured down. The crowd quickly dispersed, leaving only Diana and David sitting there.
I think the mistake I made in Vegas was thinking that I could forget what we did. But now I know that the things that people in love do to each other, they remember. And if they stay together, it's not because they forget. It's because they forgive. I was just so afraid that you wanted him. No, actually, I was afraid that you were right to want him. Because I thought he was the better man. And I know now he's not. He's just got more money.
Eventually, David signed the divorce papers, stood up, and walked away. From a distance, John stood quietly, watching them. From the look in Diana's eyes, he could tell. She still hadn't let go of David completely. On the drive home, not a word passed between Diana and John. Finally, Diana said, "We need to talk." John understood instantly. He casually told a lie, saying that Diana was simply the finest member of his $1 million club. Diana smiled knowingly, then asked Shackelford to pull the car over and turned to say goodbye to John. Before she left, John handed her the lucky coin. As she stepped out, she gently asked Shackelford to take care of John. Shackelford had always known his boss loved Diana, but he never understood why John was willing to let her go.
She never would have looked at me the way she did at him.
Diana boarded a long-distance bus. She looked out the window, reflecting on her time with John, brief but filled with genuine affection. She pulled out the lucky silver coin and suddenly noticed both sides were heads. In that moment, she remembered the night they used that very coin to decide their fate. It suddenly dawned on her. This had all been John's way of letting go. Diana traveled to the dock where David had once proposed to her, hoping to relive their memories and reconnect with her original feelings. As she walked halfway down the dock, she spotted a familiar figure ahead. Perhaps fate had led them here once more. She quietly sat beside him and gently said,
Have I ever told you I love you?
No.
I do.
still?
Always.
Two hearts that had once lost their way had found each other again. The purity and passion of love, it's what every heart longs for. But love, in all its fire, is fragile. It can't withstand endless tests. We often believe something better awaits without realizing that what we already hold may be the most precious. Once it's lost, no matter how dazzling the world becomes, it may never feel like yours again. May every trial of love be a journey of growth, not a test of our humanity.